Every morning at sunrise, the same strange scene played out in the quiet neighborhood. A tiny 4-year-old girl in a bright pink coat, walking 6 massive German shepherds as if they were her bodyguards. People watched from windows, whispering, confused. Why were these trained K9 dogs obeying a little girl? Why did they guard her like she was the most important person in the world? And why? Every time someone tried to approach her, did the dogs tighten their circle around her? No one knew her name. No one knew where her parents were. No one knew why she walked alone. Until one morning, a neighbor followed her, and what they discovered changed everything. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Every morning, just as the first hint of sunlight touched the rooftops, the same unusual scene appeared on Maplewood Street. A tiny 4-year-old girl in a bright pink coat stepped out of a narrow apartment hallway, her little hands tucked into the sleeves for warmth. And right behind her, like perfectly trained soldiers responding to a silent command, 6 massive German shepherds filed out in formation. Their paws hit the pavement in perfect rhythm. Their eyes scanned the quiet street with rigid focus, as if they were guarding someone far more important than a child. Neighbors watched from their windows, confused and fascinated. Some recorded the moment on their phones. Others whispered theories over morning coffee. How could a girl so small control 6 full-grown dogs? Why did the dogs obey her without a single word? And most strangely of all, why did they surround her in a tight protective circle every time someone tried to approach? The girl didn't smile. She didn't wave. She didn't even glance at the people watching her. She simply walked the same route, head down, steps steady, as if following a routine she couldn't afford to change. And every morning, the mystery deepened. At first, people thought the girl's strange morning walks were nothing more than an odd routine, something harmless, something cute. But as days turned into weeks, small details began bothering the neighbors. A shopkeeper noticed her tiny wrist one morning when she reached for a bottle of milk. There were faint bruises, barely visible under her sleeve, but enough to make him pause. When he asked if she was okay, the dogs instantly shifted, forming a tight barrier between her and the counter. She didn't answer. She simply paid with a few crumpled bills and walked away, the dogs guiding her out like trained bodyguards. Another morning, an elderly man walking his beagle saw her yawning repeatedly, rubbing her eyes with exhaustion. She looked far too tired for a child so young. He tried offering her a small pastry from his paper bag, but before he could take a step forward, the German shepherds growled in perfect unison. Their eyes darkened, their bodies stiffened. The girl quickly shook her head, almost in fear, before hurrying along the sidewalk. Rumors began spreading. Why did she never carry a school bag? Why had no one ever seen her parents? Why did the dogs seem trained like police K9s? Each passing day only added to the unease. Something wasn't just strange. Something was wrong. One chilly morning, when the sun was still hidden behind the clouds, a curious neighbor named Mrs. Alvarez decided she'd seen enough unanswered mysteries. She wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck, stepped onto her porch, and quietly followed the little girl from a safe distance. The 6 German shepherds didn't notice her at first. Their attention, as always, was fixed entirely on the child they guarded. The girl walked her usual route at first, down Maplewood Street, across the small bakery corner, and past the old bookstore. But halfway down the block, something changed. Instead of heading toward the park like she always did, the girl suddenly stopped, looked over her shoulder nervously, and turned into a narrow alleyway most people avoided. The dogs tightened around her instantly, their heads low, their ears alert. Mrs. Alvarez pressed herself against a brick wall, peering into the alley. She held her breath as the girl approached a rusted metal door covered in peeling paint. Then the child did something strange. She knocked 3 times in a soft, careful rhythm, as if signaling someone inside. A faint cough came from behind the door. The girl whispered, "Daddy, I brought food." Mrs. Alvarez froze. Her heart thudded. Daddy? Inside that abandoned storage room? She watched the girl gently push a small bag of groceries through a crack beneath the door. The dogs stood still, guarding the alley like trained sentinels. Every instinct in Mrs. Alvarez screamed that she was witnessing something secret, something dangerous, something heartbreaking. Mrs. Alvarez stood frozen in the shadows, her breath caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. The girl knelt beside the metal door, her tiny fingers trembling as she pushed the grocery bag further inside. "Daddy, are you awake?" she whispered, voice barely audible. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a weak reply came from behind the door, a raspy, pained voice. "I'm here, sweetheart. Thank you." The dogs lowered their heads, tails still, as if acknowledging the wounded presence behind the metal barrier. Mrs. Alvarez felt her heart squeeze painfully in her chest. Slowly, she inched closer, careful not to startle the dogs. Through a broken patch of wood near the door's frame, she caught a glimpse inside that a man lay curled on an old blanket, his face pale, his arm wrapped in makeshift bandages. His uniform jacket, faded, torn, and covered in dried blood, was unmistakable. He wasn't just any man. He was a former K-9 officer in the 6 German Shepherds, where his old partners. Mrs. Alvarez clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. The girl leaned close to the crack and whispered, "I'll bring medicine tonight. I promise. Please don't move too much." The officer coughed, struggling to breathe. "You've done enough, baby. I just need a little more time." Mrs. Alvarez felt her knees weaken. This child wasn't just walking dogs. She was protecting her injured father, hiding him from someone dangerous. And she had been doing it all alone. Mrs. Alvarez backed away from the alley, her pulse racing. She knew she couldn't leave things as they were, not with a child carrying the weight of survival on her tiny shoulders. After a long moment of hesitation, she rushed home and called for help. Within minutes, 2 officers, a paramedic team, and an animal rescue specialist arrived quietly, careful not to alarm the girl or the dogs. When they stepped into the alley, the German Shepherds reacted instantly. Their hackles rose, their bodies stiffened. 6 pairs of sharp eyes locked onto the newcomers with deadly focus. A low, unified growl vibrated through the narrow space, warning them not to take another step. The girl spun around, fear flooding her face. "No, don't hurt them. They're protecting my daddy," she cried, spreading her arms as if she could shield all 6 dogs at once. One of the officers knelt, softening his tone. "Sweetheart, we're here to help your dad, not hurt him, or your dogs." The girl hesitated, tears forming. The dogs looked at her, waiting for her signal. With trembling hands, she gently touched the nearest shepherd's neck. "It's okay. Let them through," she whispered, and unbelievably, the dogs obeyed, slowly stepping aside, still tense but allowing the rescuers to pass. The paramedics pushed open the metal door, revealing the injured K-9 officer inside. For the first time in months, help had finally arrived. The injured officer was rushed to the hospital, sirens piercing the morning air. The little girl sat beside him in the ambulance, clutching his hand, refusing to let go. The 6 German Shepherds followed in a rescue van behind them, their eyes glued to the flashing lights as if guiding their master home. Hours later, after surgery and treatment, doctors finally stepped out with a relieved smile. "He's stable," they said. "He's going to make it." When the girl heard those words, her small frame shook with quiet sobs, months of fear finally breaking free. The community that once watched from their windows now surrounded her with warmth, offering food, shelter, and comfort she had never asked for. The dogs were examined and declared healthy, loyal protectors who had kept father and daughter alive. In the days that followed, everything changed. Her father recovered steadily, supported by neighbors who refused to let them struggle alone anymore. The dogs were honored by the local police department for extraordinary loyalty and bravery, and each morning, when the girl walked her dogs again, she did it with a smile, not out of fear, but freedom. A new chapter had begun, filled with safety, hope, and family.